All right. Thanks again. And we are back with Psych Your Way to Success with Claire and
Heather?
awesome. We have an opportunity to discuss basically exploring the mysteries of business world through the lens of industrial organizational psychology. And back by big demand is basically Heather and I wanted to discuss, just for clarity's sake, what IO psychology is, industrial organizational psychology, and kind of defining the differences. We've had a little bit of questions around that. And first and foremost, we are not psychologists. I just wanted to put that out there. But practitioners, I would definitely say we're practitioners. How about you?
I couldn't agree more. Every time I tell people what I'm studying and what I do, they always say, "Oh, you're going to analyze me."
Right.
And I'm always like, it's not what I do. But
It's
I
still
will
not
tell
what I
you
do.
what I
Just
do.
still, yeah.
Exactly. No, I will not. I mean, I will
Excellent.
analyze you like a normal person.
Right. I mean, we're gonna make our judgments one way or another.
Exactly. 100%. But I always use, I'm curious what you use as a definition. My definition is I generally say it's the psychology behind business, what helps a business run efficiently
Mhm.
and makes it a place where your employees want to work. That's
That's,
how I describe it. How do you describe
I
it?
mean, that's way better. I just say corporate psychology to people. I'm like, that's a really big name for corporate psychology. And they're like, oh. And then I think what's really happening, they're probably pretending to know what I'm talking about. And I then if I go, does that make sense? And they'll either say yes or no. But ultimately, it's yeah, I think that's basically all I do. I do kind of define it like, hey, so understand motivation of people in the workplace, right? Like trying to help leaders be better leaders, or help develop better leaders in the work and corporate life, or just general industry.
I agree. And, like sometimes I explain it, as the big sports fan I am, I'll always say, you can't imagine having a team without a coach,
Right.
right? I mean, these are
Mhm.
professional basketball players or football players or baseball players. They've been playing at least 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And they all have coaches. Sometimes they have a coach, a specialized coach just for them. And so that's what I say. I'm like, I'm just the coach for business.
Yeah. And a lot of people, like, I would even venture to say that somebody would be like, well, isn't the CEO the coach, or isn't their supervisor their coach? And it's, coaches need coaches, right? They learned from somewhere, somehow. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, we never have figured it out. We're not experts like ourselves, but we have never fully figured out how to be the best leader we can be. It is constantly changing as generations change, as business changes, as things change. The idea is there's people that specialize in it. So ask for help. Yeah.
Exactly. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting for us to talk about what IO psychologists do, because I think we could talk about all the things we don't do, but I think it's more important to talk about what we actually do. What do you think?
I think that's good because I'd like to know what we do. No, excellent. Like I know the topic. It's a good one. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it, I think like change management. I
Mhm.
think, when people are either downsizing or acquiring new companies, or as you're growing, you have to change the structure of the organization. And I think that sometimes people forget that they have to do that and they feel like, oh, I built it to this. I don't need help to build it to the next level or the next level.
Mhm.
And so I think that's like a really important aspect, even like when you bring in a new CEO or COO or any of the C-suite executives, or really, and even a
I
manager,
was gonna
like
say
it
any
would be
kind of
helpful.
leadership. Yeah.
Just like how to integrate them and bring them in. And I think that that's something that we as American companies or international companies, anything, we need to be a little bit more aware of how important that is for that integration. I've seen that
Totally.
if people aren't aware of that and someone integrates into the company without being thoughtful about it, no matter
Mhm.
how good that manager, COO, CEO, they're set up to fail because it wasn't well thought out.
Yeah, and I would even say so far as when anything changes in the facility. So my background is in
Oh yeah.
occupational safety and health. So if me as a EHS professional, I would look at things and be like, wait a minute, we have a brand new machine in the room. Have we talked about what that looks like? Because there's change management that has to happen with it. And nobody thinks about, oh, we need new policies and procedures. We need all the things that are associated with that apply to leadership as well, just like you were saying. So definitely IO psychology practitioners spend a lot of their time training and teaching and coaching people how to best provide that change management. And I know some people that are, oh my goodness, specialized in change management, and I seek them out for sure. Yeah.
Definitely. I think another area is like employee attitude and satisfaction. Kind of like, do employees like working there? Like, how do you?
The best questions to ask to get a real answer. One of my favorite questions that we realized got a really good answer and gauged the temperature very well was saying to somebody, would you hire your child? Would you hire your best friend? Would you hire a family member at this location? And depending on their answer, really told you how they felt about their job. They could have told you 5 million other times in other ways, yes, I love my job. Yes, I am happy. I am satisfied. But no, there's no way I would let my family member work here or my best friend or my loved
Oh,
one.
fascinating.
Why is that? Right? Like there's a disconnect there. So either they really don't like their loved ones, which is totally possible, or there's something about the job that they're dissatisfied with, or they wouldn't
Yeah.
want to put through somebody they care about. Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
absolutely intriguing. Yeah.
it is. And like, when you have satisfied employees, it's one, such a better workplace. Two, it's so much easier to find other employees. Like, I think that's one of the biggest complaints right now. It's hard to find people who want to work at your location. And I think
Mm,
that changing the way the the business runs can really affect how people feel about it.
absolutely. There's so much more focus and highlight on employee satisfaction, and not just in pulse surveys or annual surveys that you have to take, but the actual effective tools that they're employing to make sure that it's happening, I guess is the best way of putting it. Yeah, it's put lightly, it's important.
A
Put
hundred
lightly.
percent. And
Yeah.
then even with that, I think the next one would be organizational development. So
Oh
how
yes.
to identify and train future leaders in the organization, develop fair compensation plans and promotion policies. Like all of those things helps to have somebody on the outside where they're not, I'll call it emotionally tied to the situation, but that
Hmm.
there is a definite plan forward to like help the rising stars rise.
For
And that you
sure.
don't lose them, because a lot of times you lose those good employees because there isn't a clear path.
Yeah. No, there's constant evolution in an organization if you're doing it properly. And that goes along with that change management. But what you're talking about is those policies and procedures, is making sure that people are safe and secure in what you have set up as an organization. It's completely part of the IO Psych practitioners toolkit. Yeah, I love that. What's the next one?
I mean, I would say like it kind of is hand in hand with this. I mean, obviously it's all hand in hand, but like
Definitely.
performance management. So like
Mm,
designing job performance like measures. So a lot of times there's not a way to really measure. I remember things didn't change in the dermatology practice that I owned and ran until we had a clear way to manage performance. And what, because I said that, you know, our, I'll say our customer, but they really are patients, our customers are the most important thing, that it wasn't until I added in a patient satisfaction survey that things changed completely. And I had like a clear, we want 95%, we love this place. You know, because you always have that, you know, you can't like, not everybody's going to be happy, right? But
Totally.
like, um, and once I did that, it was like, it was wild how much it changed and how they realized, okay, that's what I'm getting measured on. You know,
Hmm.
instead of like, how I used to measure it was how many patients we saw a day, how much like like,
Yeah,
um,
no, the metrics. Yeah.
exactly, right? Thank you. That
Yeah.
word.
Those fun things called words. Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes they leave my brain.
They leave all of us. We're we're not equipped to hold everything.
Yeah,
But
so I like that, like having something that can be measured that is important. Like you can't say that your patients are your most important thing, but you're not measuring their satisfaction. Like it seems
yeah.
so silly, but it's like because I was so in it, it took me a while to figure out, oh wait, if I just measure that.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people struggle with like, what am I needing to measure in order to get a 360? So even if we're talking about performance reviews, being able to do a 360 performance review of your coworkers, colleagues, or bosses, I found to be incredibly helpful. Now, I found it to also be most effective when it's anonymous because people give more of a true response. So again, these are all the things that, based on the employment or the employee, the culture of an organization, seems to be something that gets discussed and determined that way. So yeah, it's definitely something that we've talked about with, well, I can't say we, but I've had conversations about with my clients in for my business as well. So it's definitely IO. Yes. And what's next?
I would say staffing. Now, like that is so important. Well, one, if you don't have enough staff or the right staff, you really don't have a good business, you know?
Well, or it's just in transition.
Exactly. So, and so like how to find the best people that fit the right positions in an organization. I noticed that is something that I actually am really good at, is
Nice.
looking at people and figuring out where they should fit in an organization. And a lot of times when people don't do well in one position, finding the right position for them, they can just thrive. And it's so fun to watch, you know, because
Totally.
they're they're not doing very well, they're getting frustrated in their job, and you switch them to something else and they just thrive and like really like help themselves, help you, everything. So I I think staffing is so important
So,
for an IO psychologist.
and I would say that there's a good moment of clarity that we make here is IO psychology and like IO psych practitioners are not HR. So when we say things like staffing, we're not talking about hiring, firing. This is more about the strategic and intentional moves to be made when a person is needs a little bit more coaching or development, or even when it comes to an org chart and what that looks like. Though these things overlap oftentimes and they can work hand in hand with human resources, it is not the same thing. So, kind of like what Heather you're talking about, I agree. Making sure people are what we used to call right seat in the bus. Um, and making sure that you're reaching somebody's potential. Are you tapping into that? What are their, finding out what people are best at and why, really kind of is that niche quality of an IO psych practitioner. Um, Even further, a psychologist, an IO psych psychologist, would go into a little bit more of the whys and the hows, but um, most definitely, I think we spend a lot of time, and it's cool that that's your thing that you do very well at. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it, and just asking the right questions, you know? I think it's all about how you're asking the questions and what questions you're asking.
Well, I think with a lot of people, it's even asking questions at all sometimes. I'm amazed when I find out that we have leaders out there that like haven't even asked some simple questions. And once again, something that we can all relate to, just because somebody is a good worker does not mean that they're going to be a good leader. Don't just promote people because they were so good on the floor or because they were so good at doing this one task and they excelled in that entry level position or that level position. Doesn't mean that they're going to be a great supervisor or a great manager. There are steps in between that we can help you with, that progress and do succession planning for someone that becomes a leader, right? On any level, whether they're a lead, supervisor, manager, director, C-suite, anything. Each level deserves a certain, amount of attention. So, yeah,
I love that.
that's
Couldn't
my
agree more.
soapbox.
No, it's so good. I mean, I love how much you add to this conversation, and like, you're right, 100%.
Yeah.
I
So,
love that. I think the other one would be like testing, like developing tests and
mm,
assessments to measure employees and potential employees, like
this is a
personality, like
quintessential.
exactly. And I think even like as you're developing teams, sometimes teams don't work, not because it's just the wrong mix of people. Like it's funny to me when people put together teams and everybody is alpha, you know, or everybody is extroverted. Like it sounds like a fun team, and I'm sure it is, but it doesn't really get the good perspective. Even like men versus women, and just like different ages and all of that. Like there's so much to think about is when you're like developing a team and what it's for and how you should do it. Like it does have to be pretty diverse.
Sure. And I would say that this is where DEI comes into play for your diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not to mention that I think that a lot of roles in IO psych practitioners play, they do the psychometrics, which is you doing your evaluation and your testing in organizations to not just find out how to develop teams, but how to develop people too, right? Like when people think of IO psych like practices, this is exactly what they're thinking they're getting every time, which is somebody that's qualified to be able to run tests in organizations to evaluate certain things. And yes, that is part of what we do, but it is not the entirety. And some people specialize in psychometrics, right? Like some people actually do specialize in these things and can do certain tests and evaluations, which is amazing. But not everybody is qualified to do that exact same thing. So, if you're looking for an IO psych person to come into your organization to help you out, know what you're looking for. They're not a fix all. They're not going to fix everything in your organization. They're not going to change your culture in a matter of a week. So many things are a matter of how hard you're willing to work. And I don't know how you want to take that as well, Heather, or what your take on that is. But I find that I'm expected to walk in and just I have magic fairy dust where I'm gonna just sprinkle it over the organization, and then they're like, "Okay, you've got it all fixed now, right?" With almost little to no effort on their part or continuous improvement on their part, longevity wise. So that's not typically how it's going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And I think like what I always tell people is depending on how big the company is, will depend on how long it takes to change. Like if you have 10 employees, sure, you could do it in a matter of months, you
Sure.
know, but if you have 100 plus employees, we're talking a year, like where it's consistent effort. And it's kind of like I tell people it's like a boat. If you have a teeny tiny boat, you can change it like super fast. You can turn that boat. But if you have big
Freighter.
like cruise liner or freighter, like
Mhm.
you have to think well in advance changing, and it's a very slow turn, you know, and like you have to be really good about turning a big boat like that. There is not like, oh, there's an iceberg in the way, let's change. You know what I mean? You
We
just
have a
can't do that.
we have a cautionary tale on that one. Yes, we do.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
all know the end of that story. So I just think like, I think you're right. I think there is like, IO psychologists can do a great job in what they do, but it takes time and it takes effort and it takes a willingness to work and be consistent at it, because all of these things we're talking about, they go away if we're not consistent, even if it already changed it. So like
Well,
I've seen it where organizations change and then they stop doing the things that got them there and then it goes right back to where it was.
and we're not meant to stay there.
No.
99% of the time, our job is in a consulting fashion. We're coming in and we're giving you tools to do this yourself, right? Like this is our job, is to provide you with the education, the tools to do this after we're gone. We can set you up, but again, once everything is dependent on how you lead, and just using that boat analogy, don't forget that you as leaders, you as captains of the ship, are guiding this. So your actions guide everybody else's. If you want your culture to change, guess who has to start doing that change first, right? Like there's a lot of people involved in the process, but ultimately, you give the direction, you have to lead that change. So, yes, again, more soapbox moments, but I just wanted it out there. I thought it was like several questions have been asked ever since of what is it that we do, and I figured this is a good opportunity, and you laid it out so well, Heather. So thank you.
We laid it out. That was a teamwork.
I feel like that was like that moment where you laid it up and I was like, yeah, I give that support.
Perfect.
Works
We're a
for
good
me.
team.
Yeah. All right. Anything you wanted to add before we wrap this session up?
Oh, I think we nailed it, I think.
I like that self-assurance. Yes, we nailed it, you guys. Well, I just wanted to tell everybody, thanks again for listening. If you made it this far, if not, doesn't really matter, I guess. But something I do want to remind you, you can listen to us on Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, or Amazon. Nope, I said that one twice. But there's another one out there that you can also listen to us on. But ultimately, we do want to hear from you. So find us on LinkedIn, find us on YouTube, and send us messages if you have any input, if you want to add to anything, or if you just want to hear about a topic. So next time we're not entirely sure what we'll talk about, because once again, we get those topics from you guys. So we look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks again.
Perfect. Thanks.